What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be doing a detailed breakdown and analysis of my very first Hyrox race from this past weekend at Hyrox, Dallas. In this video, I'm going to be going over all of my splits from the race, give you guys a full recap from the runs, the workouts, the whole Hyrox race weekend experience. Hopefully provide you guys with some information and some tips for your next Hyrox race, or if you're thinking about doing one, hopefully this inspires you to maybe sign up one for the future. I also want to let you guys know that we are working on a cinematic short film that will be out on my YouTube channel in just a couple of weeks. That will be a more polished storytelling version of my Hyrox race. But this video you're watching now is going to be a little bit more raw, uncut, and just my personal perspective from the weekend. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into it. All right, so let's dive into some of the stats from this weekend. So my total Hyrox time was 1 hour, 7 minutes, 37 seconds. That put me in 19th place out of 927 men for the Hyrox Open. That is top 2% of the race. For my very first one, I am very happy with that. Realistically, I thought I was going to be able to go sub 65. I didn't have any like strict time goals with myself or anything, but just based on my workouts, based on these like race simulations I did in training, I was pretty confident I was going to be under 65 minutes, and I think I was definitely in shape for that. But with that being said, I think I'm very happy with a 67-minute first Hyrox race. Yeah, anytime you're in the top 2% of something, hard to be upset at that. So definitely no losses by any means. Before I go into the splits of each event and each run, I'll kind of briefly give an overview of what Hyrox is, just in case you're not familiar. But Hyrox is a fitness race that is comprised of 8 times 1 kilometer runs and 8 strength stations. As I go through the splits, I'll tell you what each strength station is, but in between each of those 1 kilometer runs, you have a strength station. So for my total running time for this race, I ran 32 minutes, 32 seconds. That means for each of those 8 kilometer runs, I averaged 4 minutes and 4 seconds per kilometer. I definitely feel like I could have run faster than that. That's not even as fast as my marathon pace. My marathon pace is closer to like 3:45 per kilometer, but that just shows, even though it's only 8 kilometers compared to 42 for a marathon, Hyrox is so tough. I wasn't even able to keep up with my marathon pace. And I think a lot of that is obviously due to the lactic acid buildup that is caused from each of the strength stations. It's just an entirely different system from marathons, from what I'm normally used to training. Total workout time of the race was 27 minutes, 48 seconds. That means all of the strength stations combined added up to 27:48. And then my rock zone time was the time spent basically in transition from the run to the workout back to the run. They call it the rock zone, and it is this section of the course where it's kind of just like this intersection and this like highway to get from the running track into your next strength station. So I spent 7 minutes, 17 seconds in that rocks zone area. And it shouldn't have been that long, probably about 3 minutes longer than it should have been. And I will explain why in just a minute. But I'm going to go through each run, each station as they came, and I will kind of just break it down from there. So my very first run was a 4:01, and they do an amazing job at the beginning of the race to hype you up, get you super psyched. You go out in heats. So there's 50 people with me in this tunnel, and every 10 minutes they roll out a heat. I went at 7:50 a.m., so I was the third heat of the day. Me and 49 other people rolled out of the tunnel. We start the run, and obviously, if you know running, if you know fitness, you always feel so good at the very beginning of a race. That first running lap is usually most people's fastest, and I knew that going into this, so I didn't want to take the bait and run too fast coming out of the gate. So I pulled back a little bit. I knew my running pace. I know it very well based off of feel, and tracking it can be very difficult because you're inside at these events. You don't have GPS. You can't use your watch to figure out what your pace is. You really have to just run based off of feel, which can be very tricky, but that's where training comes in. That's where doing just repetition after repetition at your race pace can really help. So first run was a 4:01. I came out feeling good. I was actually very first in my heat, surprisingly. Even though I felt like I was pulling back a little bit, I still came into the first strength station and as the first in my heat. So then first station is ski erg. You do 1,000 meter ski. My total ski time was 4:08. So that's from the time I come into the ski area, run all the way down, rip the ski, and exit the ski area. That is a total of 4 minutes, 8 seconds. I think actual time spent on the skier was probably 350, 355, but you have a lot of transition time and whatnot. So I maintained about a 152 to 154 per 500 meter pace. Felt very good with that. Went on to the second run. Second run was a 3:43, so definitely much faster. Felt like I started getting into a good groove there and just crushed that second run. Second event is a 50 meter sled push. So you have to push a sled that I believe is 345 pounds, and you go 12 and a half meters down, 12 and a half meters back, 12 and a half meters down, 12 and a half meters back for a total of 50 meters. And that took me 2 minutes, 24 seconds. Sled push honestly felt pretty good. Definitely way faster than I had expected. If you've ever done sled pushes, you know how much it is impacted by the surface that you're pushing on, whether the turf or carpet, dirt, rubber, whatever it is. That's one of the biggest factors of a sled push. The turf at Hyrox is a little bit more like a carpet, so it's very smooth. The sleds moved much, much easier than I expected. So legs felt pretty good from that. I felt like the sled moved really well. Again, tried to kind of pace myself there. Then we go to the third run. This was a 4:01. My goal for the runs really was to average about 4 minutes per kilometer. So felt pretty good there, pretty much right on my goal pace. The third event is a 50 meter sled pull. So obviously the opposite of a sled push. You have a sled, which I believe is 225 pounds on the end of a rope. You pull it towards you 4 times 12 and a half meters essentially. But it's a very tricky event. It's very technical. There's a lot of moving parts to it where you have to basically stay in this little box and pull, drop the rope, pick it up again, pull, drop the rope, pull, and so on. So it's a very technical event. And I didn't train sled pull as much as I wish I would have. And the main reason for that is I work out here at my house in my garage gym, and I have access to all the machines for Hyrox, all the equipment except a ski and sleds. So anytime I want to do sleds, I have to drive, go somewhere. So I just didn't work on them nearly as much as I should have. And it showed because in relation to the rest of the field, the sled push and sled pull were my 2 worst events. So lesson learned there is to get better at something, you got to just do more of it. Came into the fourth run, ran a 4:02, so pretty spot on with my pacing there. Felt pretty good going into the burpee broad jumps, which is the fourth event, 80 meter burpee broad jumps. Total time for the burpees was 3 minutes, 13 seconds. This was decent. The hard thing with burpees is your heart rate spikes like crazy. It's just so much effort, so much cardio to get down on the ground, push back up, jump forward. It's just this constant kind of perpetual movement, and you're hunched over, you're on the ground, you're jumping, all this stuff. It's really hard to breathe, and therefore your heart rate tends to spike on the burpees. But the secret with all of this stuff is just to keep moving forward, just keep a good steady pace. And I actually felt pretty good through the burpees. And I should note my overall strategy effort-wise for this race was to take the first 4 stations a little easier, a little bit more conservative, save it for the back half of the race, just like a marathon. And I feel like I did a pretty good job of that. I was definitely pushing. Obviously, it's a race. I want to go hard. You're in the environment. You have the energy of the convention center and the race and all the people around you. The announcers just yelling. There's music playing. It's hard to not push yourself, but I was definitely being conscious to not push it too hard. Went into the 5th run after the burpees, ran a 4:05, just a couple seconds off, but still within a few seconds of my goal pace. Next, we get to the 5th event, which is a 1,000 meter row. I ended up rowing a total of 4 minutes, 25 seconds. My actual time on the rower was pretty quick. I think I averaged about a 155 pace per 500 meters. So that would put me at about 350 for actual time spent on the rower. But again, you have to factor in the transition times, getting on the rower, clipping your shoes in, grabbing the handle, all those different things. And then obviously leaving the rowing section, getting out into the rock zone. And up until this point, I feel like I had paced myself pretty well. I was matching all my training paces, everything I did during training. I was confident. However, something happened on the rower. Don't know what. I wasn't pushing harder than I should have been, in my opinion. My body said otherwise. I hopped off the rower. I went to start the 6th run, and I could just feel it coming. If you've watched any of my previous YouTube videos in the build up to this, I have had a problem with Hyrox training of throwing up, and it is the most annoying thing in the world. I've tested my nutrition. I've tested cycling in different supplements, taking out supplements. And the only thing I can pin it to is just my effort level. And it's literally just my body's way of saying, hey, you're pushing too hard. We have to stop. We're leaving homeostasis. We're getting too far beyond our bodily balance, and you got to stop pushing. So basically, after the row, 35 minutes into the race.
Oh, yeah. Let's go, JD! Let's go, baby!
I went to a trash can, started heaving, just dry heaving. My abs were on fire. You know how it feels when you're throwing up. Everything's tight. Everything's clenched in your body, every muscle. It's incredibly annoying. It's very frustrating because I know that I'm mentally able to push myself past what my body is capable of doing. And that is one of the most frustrating things because in my career in endurance sports, it's always the opposite. It's always my body is capable, but my brain, my mind doesn't allow me. But with Hyrox, it's the exact opposite. It's an hour-long workout. I've done 100-mile races. I've done marathons. I've spent hours and hours and hours pushing myself and enduring discomfort. But for some reason, this effort of Hyrox just kills my body. And whatever it is, whatever stimulus that is, my body does not like it. And the reaction is to just make me vomit, basically. And I'm just stuck until this episode of heaving is done with, which usually takes 3 to 4 minutes. And it's incredibly frustrating if you can't tell. So this is where that extra 3 minutes of rock zone time comes in, where most people average about 4 minutes in the rock zone. I had 7 because I spent 3 minutes throwing up in this trash can. And then after I thought it was done, I tried to get back on the running track, get my body moving again. And then about 50 meters down, I started dry heaving again over a trash can, spitting up more crap. That was another 30, 45 seconds, trying to get it to stop. And then that tacked on onto my 6th run, an extra 30 seconds. Therefore, my 6th run was a 4:32, obviously way off all my other ones. So got back on the horse, finished out the run, normal pace. I can get right back into it. The classic puke and rally. Felt totally fine. Just a little episode of puking. 6th event was 200-meter farmer's carry. Pretty simple event. You pick up 2 kettlebells, 24 kilograms each, and you just carry them 200 meters. I was actually pretty proud of myself with this one. This is my best event, I think, percentage-wise. I was in the top 3% of people for the farmer's carry. The total time of 1 minute, 26 seconds. So I went unbroken, picked up the kettlebells, did kind of like a half jog, power walk sort of thing, crushed the farmer's carries. And the crazy part is I didn't even really train farmer's carries. It's kind of a hard event to even train for because it's very straightforward. Pick up the kettlebells, walk. It's mostly grip strength, really. Coming out of that, my next run, crushed that, ran a 3:56 for my 7th run. And then 7th event was 100-meter sandbag lunges. This is basically pick up a 20-kilogram sandbag, throw it over your shoulders. You are not allowed to drop it at any point. If you drop it, you get added on time. And then if you drop it a second time, you actually get disqualified. So carry the sandbag for 100 meters. Lunging, total time for that was 3 minutes, 35 seconds. Also one of my better events. I was in the top 8%. And my 8th and final run was 4 minutes, 12 seconds. And this one was a little slower, even though I pushed pretty hard, just because at this point, the track was so congested with people. And this is one of the big things that I wasn't fully expecting or prepared for. So a reminder of how the race kind of works is you have these heats going out every 10 minutes of roughly 50 people. That's going on all day long. And so everybody shares the same running track. So at any point in time, there could be 300-400 people on this track, which is roughly 330 meters. It gets very, very congested. And they tell people before the race to have to leave the left lane open for the faster runners. If you're a little bit slower, basically if you're not passing anybody, get over into the right side of the lane. That way you're not congesting, blocking up the fast runners. And the whole time, that whole last run around the track was just on your left, just yelling at people, just scoot over, because people were just blocking the whole track. So don't want to use that as an excuse. Obviously, there's a lot of other things I can improve on, but that is one element to consider for Hyrox is you have to do a lot of dodging and weaving and moving around people, wasting energy to holler at people that you're about to pass them or have them scoot over. So that's an element to be aware of for sure, because I definitely wasn't expecting it. And obviously that kind of stuff can affect your time. And the 8th and final strength station, everybody's favorite, 100 wall balls. My total wall ball time was 4 minutes, 38 seconds. That put me in the top 10%. So not terrible, not great. When I first started Hyrox prep, I was so bad at wall balls. For some reason, my ability to squat has always been terrible. It's always felt very unnatural, very difficult for me to squat, whether it's my hips or my ankles, my anatomy, whatever it is. It's always just felt very unnatural and uncomfortable for me. So doing 100 squats with a weighted ball was intimidating. And when I very first started, I was so bad at them. But every single day for the last 6 weeks, I've been doing 50 wall balls a day, always after my morning run. So I'll go run, whether it's a speed workout or an easy run, a long run. I'll finish up, come straight home, and do 50 wall balls just outside on my garage. And because of that, again, it's crazy. The more you do something, the better you get at it. Wall balls have become much better for me, much more natural. And I've actually kind of come to like them, get into a good rhythm, a good groove with them. And I think I'm probably going to keep them into my routine, even if I'm not training for a Hyrox, just because doing weighted squats every day is amazing for your body. It literally uses every single muscle, especially a wall ball, because you are using your arms, your shoulders, your chest, your back even a little bit. So an amazingly functional workout. I felt pretty good. I think I did the first 35 unbroken, and then from there I basically did sets of 20 all the way to the finish, and felt pretty good, very consistent. Took just like a quick 3-4 second break in between each little set. But if you don't like wall balls, just like I used to hate them, the best way to go about them is to just chunk them up. If you got to do 100 wall balls, chunk it up into sets of 10, sets of 20, just break it up that way. And it's much more manageable. And you can actually get through them a lot quicker than like going all the way to failure, having to re-catch your breath, let your muscles rest. If you just do it in little chunks, that's definitely the way to go about it. So came into the finish line at 1 hour, 7 minutes, 37 seconds. There's so many things I learned from this first Hyrox from a tactical perspective and training perspective. My biggest takeaways, the first one would be to just spend more time doing the strength workouts, doing the ski erg, the row erg, the sled push, the sled pull, all the stations. That was obviously my biggest downfall. My running was strong. I have a good running background. I'd got to get better at the strength workouts, and obviously getting better at the strength workouts, making myself more efficient. That's only going to help my runs as well, because I can go into the runs feeling maybe a little bit more fresh and therefore get faster in the runs too. The other big takeaway I had was I needed to just do longer workouts, more workouts similar to race pace and race effort or the length of the race. And I think I just needed to do more workouts of that length of like 60 to 70 minutes, because most of my Hyrox workouts were like 20 to 40 minutes maybe. I feel like maybe I paced myself for one of those like 30-minute workouts and I just pushed too hard for too long. That's probably why I threw up. So I think I just need to do longer workouts, basically, closer to like that 60-minute mark. I think that would help me significantly. And then third, goes without saying, I just got to find my correct race pace, my correct effort. And maybe that just comes down to listening to my body a little bit more during the race. This is one thing about Hyrox that's very challenging is compared to running, like you have your watch. You can look at your pace, you can look at your heart rate, It's easy to check that while you're running. But with Hyrox, especially during the strength stations, you can't look down at your watch. You're doing a burpee, you don't have time to look down and check your heart rate or check your pace. It's hard to kind of monitor your effort level other than just listening to your body and finding that feel for what you should be looking for on your race day. So it's just a very challenging sport because you have to have a strong intuition for your own body. And even though your heart rate's 165, it is a very, very different 165 as opposed to while you're running. So hopefully that doesn't deter you from Hyrox because it is a very, very fun sport. I love the training for Hyrox. I love the race environment. I love the community of Hyrox. There's so many good things that come with it. And I'll definitely be doing more of them. But that's kind of my race recap for Hyrox Dallas. Overall, very happy with how it went. I will certainly be doing more. I'm actually probably going to be doing Hyrox Switzerland in February, probably doubles for that one, but I'll keep you guys updated. Again, stay tuned for the cinematic short film coming out on YouTube, a little bit more storytelling, conceptual from Hyrox Dallas. I think you guys are going to love it. It's going to be super great and entertaining. But thanks for tuning in. See you guys in the next video.